Chapter 16. Dog Napping. When Delia arrived home on stiff legs, a locksmith was tinkering with the front door. The window next to it was smashed, and the glass was sprinkled all over the doorstep and welcome home mat like confetti. She scanned the wreckage. "What happened?" Delia asked, her lips barely moving. "Oh, thank heavens, you're safe," Miss Smith exclaimed the moment she saw Delia. She wrapped her up in a shaky hug. At least her landlady still recognized her. Delia was just starting to feel relieved by that when she noticed the muddy boot prints marring the doorstep. Delia gasped. It was just like in her nightmare, the one where the puppies were missing, and just like Fashion Addict's warning. When her friend had vanished along with the coat, the only thing the police found was muddy footprints. Did someone break in?" Delia stammered. Mrs. Smith released her from the hug. She was a blubbering mess, wringing her hands. "When I told them I wouldn't sell the puppies, they kept on calling and calling. But I didn't think they'd actually steal them." "Wait, what do you mean?" Delia said with a start. She rushed inside as fast as her plasticky limbs would allow, feeling her heart thumping. "Is Radar okay?" In the kitchen, her eyes fell on the pen. It was empty. The puppies were gone. Someone really had stolen them. "No," Delia wailed. She backed away from the pen in horror. "Oh, yes, it's terrible. Just awful," Mrs. Smith said, coming up behind her. "I called the police, but they won't do anything because they're not human." "Well, they're human to me," Delia said, wanting to cry, but her plastic eyes refused. "My dear, I know," Mrs. Smith said. "They are to me, too. But I'm afraid no one will help us." "Who do you think did it?" Delia asked, feeling cold from the inside out. Her eyes darted to the smashed window. It felt so violating that someone had broken into their whole house and stolen their puppies. The kitchen was also ransacked, and the muddy boot prints were everywhere, splashed across the floor and carpet, leading up to the puppy's empty pen. "Well, the rescue says there have been a series of dog nappings all over the state, focused on Dalmatian puppies," Mrs. Smith said, "but they don't know who's behind it." "But who would do such a thing?" Delia said, pulse thrumming. "Stealing puppies? That's beyond terrible." "Monsters, that's who," Mrs. Smith said tearfully. Her face hardened and her upper lip stiffened. She broke down in sobs next to the empty pen. The house sounded so quiet without the puppies. It felt empty, terribly empty. "Yes, monsters," Delia repeated, rubbing Mrs. Smith's back. She wished she could cry. She felt like an emotionless doll. It was horrible. She looked down at the coat, at the faux fur, and remembered the day she had noticed that the faux fur was as soft as the puppy's fur. Her heart lurched. Cruella de Vil. Not a monster, Delia thought. A devil. Was it possible that Cruella de Vil was sending her some kind of message? But she had to be long dead if she had ever existed. Too many things didn't add up. Ping! The sound of Delia's phone alert startled her. While Mrs. Smith returned to deal with the locksmith and the window repairman, Delia walked as fast as she could to her bedroom. With trembling hands, she unlocked her phone. A new DM popped up in her pick-perfect account. It was from the Devil Woman. "Those filthy mongrels belong to me." Delia stared at the message in horror. Her heart plummeted through her chest. She wrote back, her hands so stiff that it was hard to type. It seemed that the curse kept getting worse the longer she wore the coat, especially now that she could no longer even take it off. "Why would you steal them? Who are you? Please, you have to give them back." The response came through instantaneously. Ping! Text bubbles popped up from the Devil Woman. Ping! The terrible words cascaded over the screen. "Why would I give you back what you claim is yours? Why, when you've stolen what is mine?" Suddenly a cackle echoed out of her phone, even though it was impossible. Then images of plastic mannequins wearing the Corella coat flooded the screen. The mannequins stared at Delia with their plastic frozen eyes and dead smiles, draped in faux fur coats. Delia dropped her phone, but it kept loading more mannequin pictures. They swirled around the screen, glaring at her with frozen eyes and blank, expressionless faces. Then, another sound echoed out of the phone, one that made Delia's blood run cold. Yip, yip, yip! It was the sound of the puppies barking, and not just any puppies. It was their puppies. She could feel it. Then a dark silhouette appeared on the screen, a woman with spiky hair wearing a faux fur coat. You have one chance to save them. Bring my coat in exchange for the puppies. You have 24 hours. Delia tried to type back, but then an error message flashed across the screen. Profile deleted. The messages wouldn't go through. The account had vanished. The devil woman was gone.